There is something quietly powerful about your 40s. It's not loud like your 20s. It's not frantic like your 30s. It doesn't come with the constant pressure to prove yourself. Instead, your 40s arrive with clarity. For many people, this decade feels like a turning point, not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because it becomes clearer. You begin to see what truly matters and what never did. Your 40s are less about becoming someone and more about being someone, less about chasing and more about choosing, less about noise and more about truth. So what actually matters in your 40s? Let's talk about it. 1. Your health is no longer optional. In your 20s, your body forgives you. In your 30s, it starts sending warnings. In your 40s, it sends invoices. Energy doesn't come automatically anymore. Sleep becomes sacred. Recovery takes longer. You notice how food affects you. You notice stress more deeply. You notice stiffness in places you didn't know could be stiff. Health in your 40s is not about aesthetics, it's about sustainability. You begin to understand that strength matters more than appearance. Mobility matters more than ego lifting. Heart health matters more than how fast you can run a mile. Preventative care becomes real. Annual checkups aren't something you postpone. Blood work matters. Hormone levels matter. Mental health matters. Because in your 40s, you start thinking in decades. You're not just asking, how do I look this summer? You're asking, how do I want to feel at 60, at 70? You realize that health is the foundation for everything else. Your work, your relationships, your freedom. Without it, nothing else functions well. And for the first time, you may understand this not intellectually, but emotionally. 2. Peace is more valuable than proving yourself. In your younger years, proving yourself can feel urgent. You want to show you're capable, successful, smart, worthy. But in your 40s, something shifts. You start to see that not every argument deserves your energy, not every opportunity deserves your time, not every opinion deserves a response. Emotional regulation becomes a superpower. You pause before reacting. You choose your battles carefully. You stop feeding unnecessary drama. And perhaps most importantly, you stop trying to fix people who don't want to grow. Peace is no longer boring. It's powerful. 3. Time feels different. In your 20s, time feels infinite. In your 40s, time feels real. You become aware that life is not endless, not in a fearful way, but in a focused way. You begin to measure your days differently. You think about how you spend your weekends. You think about how many summers you might have left with your parents. You think about how fast your children are growing, if you have them. You become selective. You don't want to waste time in toxic environments. You don't want to stay in conversations that drain you. You don't want to spend years in situations that make you miserable. You understand something profound. Time is your only non-renewable resource. Money can be rebuilt. Reputation can be repaired. Careers can be restarted. Time cannot be returned. And that awareness changes your decisions. 4. Depth over popularity. In your 40s, your social circle often becomes smaller, but it becomes stronger. You don't need 100 acquaintances. You need 5 people who truly know you. You want conversations that go beyond gossip. You want friendships that feel safe, mutual, and mature. Surface-level interactions start to feel exhausting. You value reliability. You value honesty. You value people who show up. The friendships that survive into your 40s are usually tested ones. They've seen your growth. They've seen your mistakes. They've seen your evolution. And you've seen theirs. Depth becomes more important than popularity because you now understand that loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being unseen. In your 40s, you crave to be seen, not just surrounded. 5. Financial stability over flashy success. By your 40s, your relationship with money often changes.
In your younger years, money might have symbolized status. Now it represents freedom. Freedom to say no. Freedom to take a break. Freedom to support your family. Freedom to make choices based on values, not desperation. Financial literacy becomes essential. Saving, investing, reducing unnecessary debt, these aren't abstract concepts anymore. You think about retirement, you think about emergencies, you think about long-term security. Flashy purchases lose their appeal if they threaten stability. You may still enjoy nice things, but not at the cost of peace. Security feels better than showing off, and the ability to sleep at night without financial anxiety, that's luxury. 6. Authenticity becomes non-negotiable. One of the most liberating shifts in your 40s is caring less about external validation. You've tried fitting in. You've tried pleasing everyone. You've tried being who others expected you to be. And at some point, you get tired. In your 40s, authenticity stops being a trend and becomes survival. You no longer want to perform a version of yourself that feels unnatural. You say what you mean, kindly but clearly. You stop pretending to enjoy things you don't. You dress in ways that feel comfortable, not just impressive. You start asking yourself real questions. What do I actually want? What do I actually believe? What kind of life actually fulfills me? And you answer honestly. Authenticity simplifies life. It reduces anxiety. It reduces comparison. It reduces exhaustion. Because pretending is heavy. Truth is lighter.
7. Your career must align with your life. By your 40s, many people reach a crossroads professionally. You may be established, experienced, competent, but you might also be asking, is this sustainable? Is this meaningful? Is this how I want to spend the next 20 years? Climbing the ladder is no longer the only goal. Balance matters. Purpose matters. Flexibility matters. You understand burnout more deeply now. You've likely experienced it. You no longer want a career that consumes your entire identity. You want integration. You want work that supports your life, not replaces it. And for some, this decade becomes a time of reinvention, a new business, a career shift, a passion project finally taken seriously. Because now you know yourself better, and that knowledge is powerful. 8. Boundaries protect everything. In your 40s, boundaries stop feeling rude. They feel necessary. You learn that saying yes to everything means saying no to yourself. So you become more intentional. You protect your time. You protect your energy. You protect your mental space. You don't over-explain your no. You don't justify every decision. You understand that boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about managing yourself. And interestingly, the right people respect them. The wrong people resist them. And that tells you everything you need to know. 9. Parenting changes perspective if you have children. For those who are parents, your 40s often bring a deeper awareness of legacy. You think about what you're modeling. You think about the emotional patterns you're passing down. You think about the values you're demonstrating daily. Children grow quickly. You start noticing how much of their worldview is shaped by your reactions, your stress levels, your relationships. And that awareness can be humbling. You focus less on perfection and more on presence. You understand that your children may not remember every gift, but they'll remember how safe they felt with you. And if you don't have children, you may still think about legacy in other ways: mentorship, community impact, creative contributions. In your 40s, you think beyond yourself. 10. Letting go is an act of strength. There is loss in your 40s. Sometimes it's the loss of loved ones. Sometimes it's the loss of dreams that didn't unfold as planned. Sometimes it's the loss of who you thought you'd be by now. And this can be confronting. But there is also maturity in letting go. You let go of grudges. You let go of unrealistic expectations.
You let go of timelines that were never yours. You understand that holding on too tightly creates suffering. Acceptance becomes a form of freedom. You stop fighting reality, and you start working with it. 11. Mental health is not a luxury. In your 40s, mental health becomes visible in a new way. You may begin unpacking childhood patterns. You may examine relationship dynamics more honestly. You may recognize stress responses you never questioned before. Therapy no longer feels taboo. Self-awareness becomes valuable. You understand that unresolved trauma doesn't disappear, it manifests. So you choose growth. You invest in your emotional well-being. You practice mindfulness. You cultivate resilience, because you realize that inner peace affects everything: your marriage, your friendships, your work, your health. Mental clarity becomes a priority. 12. Comparison loses its grip. By now, you've seen enough of life to understand that everyone's path is different. The friend who married early may envy your independence. The entrepreneur may envy the stability of a corporate role. The high earner may envy the person with more time. In your 40s, comparison feels less convincing. You've lived long enough to see that success is multidimensional. You define it for yourself, and that self-definition is liberating. 13. Gratitude becomes deeper. Gratitude in your 20s might have been aspirational. In your 40s, it becomes reflective. You look back and realize how much you've survived. You remember risks you took. You remember heartbreaks you healed from. You remember fears you overcame. And you begin to appreciate your resilience. You also begin to appreciate small things more deeply: a quiet morning, a healthy parent, a long conversation, a pain-free day. Gratitude becomes less about chasing more and more about honoring what already exists. 14. Legacy starts now. In your 40s, legacy is no longer abstract, it's practical. You think about how people experience you, what impact your work has, what stories will be told about you. Legacy isn't just about wealth, it's about influence. Did you make people feel valued? Did you contribute meaningfully? Did you live in alignment with your values? Your 40s are not the end of ambition, they are the refinement of it. You begin building not just for achievement, but for significance. 15. You realize you are still becoming. Perhaps the most important truth about your 40s is this: you are not done. Society sometimes implies that by 40 you should have everything figured out, but many people find the opposite. Your 40s can be a decade of evolution. You may change your mind. You may change your priorities. You may discover new passions. You are still growing, and that realization is energizing. Final thoughts. What actually matters? So what actually matters in your 40s? Your health, your peace, your time, your relationships, your authenticity, your stability, your growth. Not perfection, not external approval, not constant hustle. Your 40s are about alignment, living in a way that feels congruent with who you are now, not who you were at 25. It's about making decisions that your future self will thank you for. It's about understanding that life is not a race, but a series of chapters. And your 40s? They might just be the chapter where everything finally starts to make sense. Not because life is flawless, but because you are wiser. And wisdom changes everything.